on the video. Have any of you heard of Grace O'Malley or Bronnie Ware?
Yes.
You've heard of her? Yes. Believe it or not, she was a woman in the 1500s who commanded about 300 men and owned a fleet of galleys. They were ships. And in the 1500s, she was trading from Scotland down to Spain and Portugal, the whole west coast of Europe. An extraordinary woman in her lifetime. And the name she had was Bronnie Ware, which actually comes from Bald Grace, right? And the reason for that was her father owned the ships. She wanted to get out on them with him, and he had always said, no, it's no place for a girl. You stay at home and help your mother. And after a while, she wasn't going to stand for that anymore. So the story goes that one day, chop, 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 she knew he was going on a long journey, and she hid on the boat, and by the time he discovered her, it was too late to turn back. And she stayed on the boat, proved herself very enthusiastic, very keen, and ultimately she became his best fighter, his best sailor, and she inherited his boats. It was an extraordinary story. But what happened was, she then went on to have a son. She had a number of children, but she had one son called Theobald, and he's mentioned on the video, because she fostered him here. And you fostered to make alliances. You knew what you were doing. A good family that would come in and back you up and fight if you needed support. So he was fostered here, he lived and died here. And he ended up owning all the castles, and this room was built as a de Burgo mortuary chapel. So these were the Burkes of Mayo, very important family, and this was their altar, but it was a mortuary chapel. So this was where the body was brought. If somebody had died, they were reposed here, they'd have been prepared for burial here, and then there's a big family crypt under our feet. And there was access to that crypt up until the 60s. People were able to go down, and now it would have been maybe closed or locked, you know, but there was actually access to it. And then when they were making the restoration, they chose to seal it, which is kind of disappointing. I hope to get down and have a look. But isn't this beautiful? This altar is at least 400 years old, because he died in 1629. We know that it was in place for him, but we actually believe there could have been people before him, that he may not have been the first, in which case this could be anything up to 500 years old. And the beautiful carving, especially on the top part of it, is so delicate. You wonder why were they able to do it? So tonight we have a really special night planned, because a woman from Castlebar called Anne Chambers, and the funny thing is she wrote Grace O'Malley, or Bronnie Ware, into the history books. Irish people actually thought she was mythology. They thought she was legend, because her history was only preserved in poetry and song. She was not in the history books, no record, you know. And what she did was she delved in the 1970s, published the book in 1979. It'll be the 50th anniversary of this decade. And now, Bronnie Ware is known all over the world. All over the world. And she's on the school curriculum here. There's been documentaries about her. There's been a musical written about her that was performed in Chicago, New York and Boston. So she's a legend, you know. But the book tonight that's going to be launched is about her son. And in actual fact, his story is just as brilliant. So we're really looking forward to it. And the writer will be here, who's just this remarkable woman, you know, extraordinary lady. So we're just so honoured, and it's going to be a special night, and they'll all have an opportunity to come in here.